What's going on, y'all? Machiavelli Mills TV. Y'all hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. So, as many of you all know, President Donald Trump is talking about sending in the National Guard to my hometown, Chicago, Illinois, where I am currently located, right? And so, he's been talking about sending the National Guard here for a while. He's been talking about that for a while, but he's citing the violence that occurred over Labor Day weekend as a big reason why he wants to send the National Guard here. Over Labor Day weekend, about 54 people were shot, 8 people were unalived, and I have to say the word unalived because if I say the K word, I could get demonetized on YouTube, and I'm not willing to risk that. So I have to say the word unalived. So 54 people were shot over Labor Day weekend, and 8 people were unalived. And Donald Trump says, this is the worst, this is the most dangerous city in the United States, etc. And people like, the National Guard is coming in. You got people who are all for it that say, hey, we need to put a handle on this crime, bring the National Guard in. You got people who are against it saying, I don't see the purpose for that, so on and so forth. Now, from my understanding, when the National Guard comes into Chicago, they will be placed around the federal buildings. The federal buildings in Chicago are in downtown Chicago, right? For the most part, from what I know, all the federal buildings, I don't know if all of them, but majority of the ones I know is downtown Chicago. And the violence is not concentrated in downtown Chicago. Violence in the city is occurring on the south and the west sides for the most part, right? And so it's happening in pockets of the south and the west side. And the National Guard, if they're going to be placed around federal buildings, they're not going to be in areas where the violence is occurring heavily, right? So that's not really going to help anything in my opinion. But I mean, whatever, right? But instead of me focusing on, what are my thoughts about the National Guard coming into Chicago? What are my thoughts about that? I'm going to focus on Chicago violence, the perception around it, and what has caused a lot of it as of lately amongst a certain demographic of people in the city. So let me just say this. Chicago, Illinois has always been gangland. And it's not anything that I say proudly. Majority of the major gangs in the United States, outside of the Crips and Bloods, majority of the major gangs originate in Chicago. Whether it's Gangsta Disciple, Black Disciple, Black Stones, Vice Lords, Latin Kings. These gangs all originate in Chicago. So when you have that going on, also with the fact that, unfortunately, wherever there is a lot of access to guns, as well as poverty, when that mix comes into play, there's going to be violence, unfortunately. Because when people are poor, they're going to prey on people that live around them. And when they have guns to do it, firearms to do it, it's going to be robbing and etc. to get whatever they want to get, right? And a person down the street may not have that much more than the next person, but they got more than them. So you got people that's going to be trying to just take from individuals, right? In that type of situation where poverty is high and the access to firearms is ginormous, right? And we gotta ask ourselves, why are guns so accessible here in Chicago? But a main part of this comes from the fact that, so let me just say this. The weirdest part about all of this is, with those statistics that I just read off to y'all in the beginning of the video, the fact that over Labor Day weekend, there were 54 people shot and 8 people unalived. Do y'all know over a 12-year span, over a 12-month span, this is the lowest amount of homicides we've seen in Chicago in about a decade. Seriously. With them statistics that we just read, this is the lowest amount of homicides we've seen in Chicago in about 10 years. And in fact, Chicago was way worse like in the 80s and 90s. When Ben Wilson, a star basketball player at Simeon High School with Derrick Rose, Jabari Parker, Kendrick Nunn, Nick Anderson, Simeon High School, the famed Simeon High School. When Ben Wilson was the #1 player in the country, and he was gunned down in the city. When he had his life taken from him, Ben Wilson was probably like the 800th something murder that year. Like 800th. Like it's not even like 800th something. That's crazy, right? Nowadays in Chicago, you see the total hover around 500 or so. Like in the 90s, man, it was like 900 murders and stuff like that in Chicago. And Ben Wilson died in the 80s. So again, that was 800th something. That was crazy. You know, so it was the violence was much higher in previous generations. What's making it seem like is way worse is the fact that nowadays the perpetrators are getting younger and younger. The individuals that's doing this, that's out here committing a lot of these crimes and out here taking lives, are 14, 15-year-olds shooting and stuff like that. And some would ask, why are they turning to violence a lot in the city? Why are the youth in certain pockets of the city, why are they becoming more violent, or they're turning to gun violence, etc., and all of that? And the answer to this is generational gangbanging. I'm going to be for real with y'all, man. Chicago suffers from generational gangbanging. I just told y'all in the video that outside of with the exception of the Crips and Bloods, majority of the major gangs in the United States of America originate here, right? So what does that mean? Y'all, I know people I went to school with who like gangbanging, they fathers was GDs. They uncles was GDs. They big cousins were GDs. And then they became GD after that. Right? I know some people who had grandfathers who was Blackstone. Father Blackstone. Uncles Blackstone. Like etc. And then it just keeps going and going and going. Right? And then this is what really is a factor that plays into a lot of this. With a lot of the youth, when you got a gang-banging father, you got a father that's a gang member. He a street duty gang-banger. Your father, a lot of them either end up deceased or they go to jail for an extensive amount of time, right? And with the father gone, the street, the neighborhood is raising them, right? And instead of the dudes in the neighborhood being upright big homies and telling them, hey man, telling the young kids, hey man, your father, man, he did the wrong stuff, man. Unfortunately, he was lost out here. He went down the wrong road and he ended up in prison. But you don't got to be that way. You smart. You can put your time and you can put your energy to something completely different, to something positive. You can go to college. You can you can go learn a trade. You can put your time into something productive to be able to be an entrepreneur. You can dream big and you can be a law-abiding citizen and make legal money out here and do it the right way. A lot of the elder statesmen in the community that was also gang members was telling the young kids, man, your daddy was a demon. He was a demon out here. Your daddy was out here. He wasn't going for none out here. Your daddy was a demon out here, man. He was on there with everybody. Your daddy was doing this. He was doing that. He was selling dope. He was, man, you couldn't look at your daddy wrong. He ready to pop somebody. All that silly shit, right? And what happens is children are very impressionable, young kids, and also they live for the validation of their fathers, or they want to be who their fathers are. I don't care what nobody say. Young men, most of the time, look up to their fathers. If they know their father, or they got any connection with him, even if the father was deceased a lot of times, they want to have a connection with their father in some way. Even if their father was a terrible person, was out here wilding out in the streets, gang banging, all of that, they want to have a connection to their father in some way. And so when the hood is when dudes in the hood, goofies, disguised as big homies in the hood is telling young shorties, Your daddy used to be a demon out here. Your daddy was doing this. Your daddy was dead. He was wilding out. He was selling dope. He was moving weight. Man, he was out here. He was pushing his weight on everybody, man. He was out here. He had dudes running for him. Dudes were scared of him. All of that. You know what that does to a young man's psyche? Man, I need to be just like my father. Look how these men talk about my father with so much respect. My father was a man that was feared. My father was wilding out in these streets. Man, I want to be connected to him in some way. Let me go do what he did out here so I can get talked about in the same way. Let me go do what he did out here so people can look at me as an extension of my father. That's what happens. You tell these young shorties these glory stories, these bullshit glory stories about their fathers being out here wilding out and you know, spraying up blocks and shooting at ops and all that type of stuff. And these kids, they get fascinated with it. It's because y'all, a lot of the older dudes on the block telling these shorties, your daddy was a demon, all of that. Instead of telling these kids, man, listen, your dad went down the wrong path. That's why, unfortunately, he's not here with you. You know, he locked up or whatever. Or he done got into some trouble, or he's no longer here on this earth because he made the wrong decisions. However, you can lead a positive life. You can be something different. You can make him proud in a whole different way by being an upstanding young dude. You go out here, go make a living, go to school, get your education. Instead of saying that, you got some dudes in the neighborhood that's also caught up in generational gang banging, older gang members, telling the shorties, hey man, you need to be out here doing this, that, and the third, like your dad. Now you don't need to be doing this. Your daddy was this, that, and the third. And then that translates to them, I need to be doing the same thing my father was doing. Because these men respect my father. Right? And again, man, it all goes back to that type of stuff, man. I remember, even Chicago rapper Lil Durk, I always remember this, man. Durk would hear all these stories about his father. Now, his father has since turned his own life around, converted to Islam, now leading a peaceful life and all of that. His father talked about being a member of the Gangster Disciples. And Durk would talk about, you know, hearing his father was in the streets doing this, that, and the third and all of that. And I think it caused him to become lost. And in an interview, he even said, man, I was lost running around out here in the city. I was lost. You know, my pops wasn't around. I'm able to do certain stuff, whatever. I was lost out here. And I do believe the glory stories of his father played into him wanting to jump out into the streets, along with the fact that he was in rough neighborhoods where that was all around him, right? Now, we can even talk about Lil Reese. Now, I don't know this to be true personally, but from what I heard, Reese's father was Black Disciple BD. His daddy was Big BD. And again, when young boys, they grow up with admiration of their fathers. A lot of kids grow up with admiration of their fathers. Man, they feel like, I got to do what my father was doing. Reese got a picture when he's a little boy. He about 3 or 4 throwing up BD. At 3 or 4 with some older dudes in the neighborhood. What does that do to a kid's psyche? I'm supposed to be this. These men gonna respect me if I do this. My dad was out here in the streets doing this. He get love, respect, admiration. They salute him. I'm supposed to be doing the same thing. Generational gang banging got these kids caught up in a curse, in a cycle. Generational gang activity, gang culture. You know? And look, I'm gonna be real with y'all. I got dudes that was street dudes all in my family. I got GDs in my family, MCs, Mickey Cobras in my family. I got Blackstones in my family, Four Corner Hustles in my family, all of the above. But the thing with the individuals in my family, when they got older, when we was coming up, they didn't want us to do none of the stuff they was doing. And these men also turned their life around, became law-abiding citizens, working an honest job, staying out the way, you know, got married, had kids or whatever, realized a lot of the stuff wasn't about nothing. A lot of the stuff that was going on when they were shorties was just stuff they shouldn't have been in the first place, stuff that they could have lost their life in. Like, yo, I'm through with all of that. Let me go ahead and lead a regular life and let me go ahead, let me punch a clock. I ain't got time for none of that. Some of them was never that deep in anyway, because they realized before they even got deep in, like, yo, this ain't nothing I need to be doing, man. This just too crazy out here, right? But some did get deep in, went to jail. Some of them didn't go to prison, but just realized, yo, I shouldn't be doing this. And so when we were coming up, when I say we, I'm talking about me and my cousins. Yo, they would have never allowed us to be outside in the streets wilding out. They would have never, they wouldn't have advocated for us to be like that, nor would they want anybody to even be telling those stories of them being outside on the block to us at all. You know? But that's what happens. And for me, I'm thankful to have the father that I have, because my dad wasn't no street dude. My father was a dude that was out here going to work all the time. I'm talking about he had callus on his hands, working hard. Had his own cable company. You feel me? My daddy was a hustler. You feel me? With the cable. Doing that, hooking up more than half of Chicago, the Chicagoland area, the far suburbs, everything. He like, I'm tired of working for the cable company. He had his own connections, doing his own thing. Hooking up cable for real. I used to go with him, watching them climb poles, drill holes in people's walls, run the cable wire, all of that. Well, my father worked, was sweating out here, getting on his hands, getting on his knees, when I say getting on his knees, not funny shit I'm talking about. I'm talking about drilling holes in the wall, running cable wire, all of that, climbing ladders, all of that, picking up heavy equipment to go ahead and feed his children, feed his family. So when I see that example of a man, that's who I want to be like. You know, that's who I want to be like. You know? Now, again, glory stories of your father can have an impression on kids. You know, my father just was a guy that was a ladies' man. Was into the women, was always dressing nice, always smelling good. All with hygiene, was all the way up to a T, but he was a hard worker. So yeah, I do believe, and that's where the stories of your father kind of can influence you in a way. You know, I kind of like, man, I want the pretty girls like my dad had the pretty girls, you know, etc., stuff like that, right? But of course, I found my own way as a man. You know, when I was coming up in Chicago, when I was coming of age, 18, 17, all of that, I found my own way and blazed my own trail. But you know, I'm thankful my father wasn't no street dude, because that was not what I aspired to be. But for a lot of young men, unfortunately, they come from neighborhoods and they come from a family full of gang culture, and it gets passed down instead of generational wealth being passed down. Gang culture gets passed down to some kids, and then they get stuck in a cycle. They get stuck in a cycle of destruction, unfortunately, because they listened to the wrong folks. People was telling them the wrong information, or their father was the wrong example for them to be following. You know, and so that's what got a lot of these shorties wilding out. When people be like, you know, we need some more programs. Ain't no programs in the hood, man. These kids don't care nothing about no programs, man. I'm gonna be honest with y'all on this channel. These shorties don't care nothing about no programs in the hood. None of that. They don't care nothing about none of that stuff. A program could be around, they still gonna be out wilding out, because it's already been embedded in them, unfortunately, that this is what they need to do to get respect in the hood, or this is what their father was doing, so they want to do what their father was doing. Because unfortunately, in the hoods where I come from, in the hoods of Chicago, fear is more respected than being a genuine person. People will respect you more because they scared of you here than the fact that you're a genuine, upstanding dude, man. You could be an upstanding dude, you could be honorable and all of that, and you're gonna have people trying to get over on you, trying to be shiesty with you, trying to finesse you out of some stuff. But when they know you're a person who will resort to violence, when you're a person who will up the ante and take it to a level, go 0 to 100 for lack of better terms, they're not quick to play with you when they know that you are that type of person with that type of temperament. And a lot of times people gravitate to, I want to be feared more than I want to be I want to be respected for being genuine. People lean towards, I want to be feared more than I want to be a genuine person, because fear is more respected. And then when you got the fact that, oh man, this young shorty, his father was GD, his father was BD, or his father was a vice lord, all of that. It gets passed down, unfortunately, through generations. In Chicago, we got whole hoods that's known for being one gang area. We got hoods called Motown, for real, in Chicago. What Kanye say on Diamonds from Sierra Leone? Got family in the D, kinfolk from Motown, that's Detroit. He said back in the Chi, them folks, the folks is the GDs, BDs, them folks ain't from Motown. Motown meaning the area where the Blackstones are, right? I hope I didn't say Black Disciples, but Motown where the Moes, aka the Blackstones, are, right? And I remember one time, and so when you take that into account, yeah, man, that played like, yo, we got areas that are designated, like, yo, this is where these gangs, this is where the gangs are. In this area, this one gang is in this area and has been in this area for 20, 30 years, 40 years. That causes certain friction and all of that too, you know, along with the fact that people are poor and access to guns is the access to guns is just easy as 1, 2, 3. And again, we got to ask ourselves, how are these guns so accessible? Because you got kids out here with assault rifles from Call of Duty getting in the hood. How the hell are these kids getting some of these guns? There's some stuff you see somebody in the military with. How do they got access to these type of weapons? How? It's something to ask. This is a rhetorical question too. Rhetorical question. But yeah, when people are poor and guns, access to guns is easy. Guns is super accessible. As crime is going to occur, unfortunately, because people are going to try to encroach on other people that live amongst them in order to get what they need or get what they want. You know, and I'm not an advocate for nobody harming, for black men and black women harming each other. I'm not an advocate for that at all. Like, at all. I ain't got it in me to take no another black man life. Well, no life in general. Unless you trying to do something to my kids, my family, my loved ones. Then unfortunately, all bets off the table. You trying to hurt my children, my family or something, you know? But I ain't got that in me. I'm not like that. But a lot of these shorties, man, they've been bred. The generational gang culture is a generational curse for them. And it's led them down the wrong path. Now, some would say, oh, well, the drill music as well. But a lot of this stuff was already happening, unfortunately, before the drill music even came around. Now, I do think the drill music amplified things, because now when the world is singing songs where people are getting dissed and all of that, people's deceased friends are getting dissed, it causes more anger and more lashing out of violence. But the violence was already occurring before the drill scene even got popularized. I can say that once Darion Albert, the young boy that got attacked, it was like a big old fight amongst two different neighborhoods. Kids from the Gardens, I think, and kids from Roseland was fighting, and he got hit in the head with like a 2x4, right? And he had his life taken. And that's in that incident. When that happened, Chicago made national headlines, and they kept talking about Chicago violence, because one, I think people were just shocked to see like youth. It was the youth this young, like being perpetrators of this stuff. Even though Chicago homicides was down significantly from the years in the 90s, in the early 2000s. Homicide numbers were down significantly from those times, but it was just the fact that youth was engaging in it that had people just so stunned and so shocked, right? And then I also believe that when Barack Obama became president, I'm not saying that Chicago was just always like flowers and dandelions and it was just all good and it was all love here. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that at all. None whatsoever. Right? But damn, I'm trying to think what my point was. I'm tripping because somebody showed calling my phone as I'm making this video. But when Barack Obama became president, I believe that the disdain towards him from the Republican Party that hate Democrats that hated Barack Obama, to put a stain on him, they kept saying, what about Chicago? What about Chicago? What about Chicago? Even though there were other cities with higher homicide rates, higher crime rates, higher rates of violence than Chicago, the concentration was put on Chicago because Barack Obama repped Chicago. And that was a way for them to say, oh, what about, that was a way for them to put a stain on Barack Obama. What about Chicago? What about Chicagoisms? And that became a thing that carried over when we start talking about police brutality, when we start talking about systemic racism, we start talking about, you know, a lot of people being like unalived by law enforcement unjustly. The retort was, what about Chicago? What about Chicago? So yeah, that created some even bigger thing, you know. But yeah, the youth violence really is due to generational gang culture being passed down. And that's why I'm always grateful that I have the father that I have and the mother that I have as well. You know, and I have a father that was not a street dude at all. He didn't take no mess. My dad was like James. My dad was like James Evans on Good Times, right? He loved us, cared about us, showered us with love, but he didn't take no mess off nobody. Damn sure wasn't taking no mess off his kids. But he was a provider, hard worker, all of the above, and he was attentive to his children. My father, I didn't even live in a house with my dad. But I can go stay. I went with my dad every weekend. I've stayed with my father for months at a time and just be at his house. My dad was he didn't care. I can come over there, stay over there for the whole year if I wanted to, you know? But my dad, he noticed everything about me. If I was walking different, if I'm talking different, if I'm coming in the house, I'm looking at a little different aura about me. I got a different swagger about me. What's going on? Why are you walking like that? Why are you talking like that? What's going on? My father knew when I wasn't a virgin anymore, just how my aura was. My mother did too. You know, so I had a father that was paying attention to me, paying attention to how I was walking and talking. Like when I hear, for example, I hear Chicago rapper G Herbo talking about coming in a house with all type of firearms and stuff, right? And his mama and his father was together. They were married, right? For years. All of the above, right? And I'm like, yo, no disrespect to his father's deceased. That could never happen with me. There's no way. My father never let me come in the house with no guns. And what the fuck? Like, no. So, yeah, it's a lot of the stuff that happened in Chicago is unfortunately gang culture being passed down and some parents just giving in to like, oh, this is what's going on in the neighborhood. This is what's going on in their surroundings. So it is what it is. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But you got a lot of people out here that was raised just like me. Believe it or not. A lot of people in Chicago who was raised to be respectful, who was raised to just, you know, they everyday people. They ain't out here taking people's lives and out here shooting at folks and gun-toting crazy. Nah, bro. No. It's a lot of kids that just like me and a lot of parents who had parents just like mine. It was also kids that was raised completely different from me. And a lot of them kids was caught up in them generational curses that come with generational gang culture. And that's what got the shorties out here losing their mind and wilding out. That's what it is, man. Machiavelli Mills TV. I'm out, y'all. Peace.